Welcome to the Yoga Voice, a podcast by Cityoga, School of Yoga and Health. Our guests discuss how the contemporary practice of this ancient art transforms the lives of individuals and communities in the Midwest and beyond. Cityoga has been a center for the practice of yoga and yoga teacher training since opening in 2002. Join us as we explore how yoga inspires and transforms.
Hello, Dave Sims here at the Yoga Voice, and today I have a very amazing person in the studio with us. He's a personal development coach with a focus on holistic wellness. He's got 8 years as a veteran in the Coast Guard. He's a father of 6 children, 2 grandchildren. He has logged over 10,000 hours teaching yoga and fitness. He's the founder of Chris Roche Wellness. So I want to welcome Chris Roche. Thanks for coming in today.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me. This is really cool.
Yeah. Well, let's just kind of kick it off with what I like to ask all of our guests, and listeners are, really intrigued by the answers they get, is what inspires you about yoga today?
Oh, wow. I think having been in the yoga game for over 20 years now, I think the thing that inspires me the most is to see how prolific it's become in terms of like a worldwide thing, not just, when I got back into it in the day, it was just, stuff that the hippity-dippity folks did, and it was super weird. And if I talked to my personal training clients about yoga, they looked at me like I was insane. And it's just now you go into the gym and it's pretty much every gym offers yoga, a lot of corporate on-site yoga classes. It's just everywhere. It's in the media. And I think that to me, that is incredibly exciting and inspiring to want to be a part of that and continue to be a part of it. I think there was a time when that was kind of bumming me out because it's like, you find that cool thing. Nobody else is doing it. You're kind of, leading edge and hip or something. And then you don't want everybody to know about it because, that's no longer cool and underground. But the reality is, I look back, I'm at such a different place than I was 20-some years ago in my life. And I know what a huge value and what a huge piece of all that has been from yoga. And so to think that maybe there's even one other person out there, and especially if I can be a part of that journey for them that has, even, I know it sounds silly maybe, but even if they get a 10th of what I've experienced from yoga, and it's one person, like it'll make it worth what I've done all these years. It's just been so transformative and powerful. And, like I said, it's just been such a journey, and I'm such in a different place now. I have seen yoga from my own perspective of just doing it for exercise. I was doing a lot of strength training and running and ultra distance, this, that, and the other. And I just knew there was a lack of balance. I didn't know really what that was. And through yoga, I kind of had an inkling that might be something worth trying. It was something that was just from the physical perspective, which is what a lot of people, I think, come into yoga. It's just for the physical side or stress relief, or their doctor tells them they should help their back. And that's cool because that's how I got here. It wasn't because of some lofty spiritual reasons or enlightenment or anything of that sort, to help me personally in my life outside of how I felt physically and my performance. And so I was one of those people, and I think sometimes in the yoga world that can be criticized, like that we call it the gym yoga and stuff. But I feel like if that's the only place a person goes with it, then that's great because it's helping them. But then you have someone like myself that sticks with it and starts to understand the deeper dimensions of yoga and finds a quality teacher that can help, meet them where they are and lead them in a direction that, yoga is a really powerful tool,
right.
Or it can be. And so, like I said, it's kind of a long story maybe, but it's just been so transformative in my life. And I don't mean that just from like getting on the mat and doing some yoga, which I love to do and I love to teach. It's the other aspects, the philosophy of yoga, integrating yoga into your entire life over a course of time, and just how impactful that is in a powerful way. I think to me that's what's inspiring is there's just so many more opportunities for people to get into the yoga journey. Kind of like, there used to be this one maybe path of kind of getting on the yoga journey. And now it's like there's so many doors and on-ramps to get into yoga, that to me is exciting. And so I think to be a part of that and see, okay, this is where it's been in the last 20 plus years for me. Where is it going to be in another 20 plus years? And how the potential is there that so many people need it. Our culture, our society, our country in particular, I think it could really help a lot of people, and change a lot of the direction potentially of, this trajectory that we're on. I guess. So, yeah.
Well, and you're right. Our culture does need it right now. And I think that's why we're seeing this massive amount of growth, because people are feeling something's missing. There's too much stress, too much busyness. And then they can go to a yoga class just about anywhere and then hopefully have a sense of something going on their mat, a little shift, an internal thing, whether they came for that or if it's just stretching. And so you started out you were studying exercise science, or
right?
And what brought you to that very first yoga class? I mean, you alluded to a little bit of the fitness side. Is that, how did that kind of transpire?
Yeah, I had gotten, just to, don't want to get too far off in the weeds with the history of it, but, short version of it is that, the mid 90s, late 90s, was just starting to experience some aches and pains and limited range of motion and things. And I was still in my 20s at that time. And so, there was just kind of this internal, like this inner voice that was saying balance, balance, balance. And I didn't know really what that meant. But I think I remember seeing some things about yoga in a journal or magazine or something. And I don't know, it just kind of spoke to me. I think the Eastern stuff struck me. I remember I grew up watching like Kung Fu, the TV show and the old Kung Fu movies and, all that kind of stuff, and seeing Lillian Fullis on PBS. And I always thought that was kind of trippy and cool and didn't know. But anyway, I think that there was just something that resonated. And I thought, I'll give that a try. But where I was living at the time, there wasn't any access to yoga, no teachers, no classes. And I found a Tai Chi class. And I really felt that shift of just from a mental, physical perspective. It was really an energetic thing. I just didn't know it at the time. And unfortunately, that class dried up. And I actually went to a bookstore and bought a yoga VHS tape, dating myself there, right? And the first time I did it, it was like I don't know if I was doing anywhere near remotely correct or not, but I definitely felt something different. And since I didn't have access to classes, I did the video quite a bit. And then having the exercise science background and understanding movement mechanics and some of those things, I kind of started teaching myself a little bit. I'd get on the mat without a video and do some of these poses I was learning and just seeing what was happening. And, that was pretty powerful. I started to, physically feel better. I remember turning my head to look for traffic to merge onto a lane. And it's like, wow, I don't have to turn my whole body now to look over my shoulder. I can just turn my head because my neck is working right again. And that was kind of what brought me into the yoga practice. And a couple years into it, I found a teacher that I started working with. He was based out in California. And so I started doing basically like some correspondence with him and some online type training back in those days. And I went out a couple times to visit with him and got some hands-on experience, stay with him for a couple of days here and there. And and then I was teaching it with my clients that I was working with. And just seeing that it was beneficial, and I would call it core stretching and that sort of thing. And I think that from there, it just kind of evolved. I was sort of volunteered to teach a class at a gym where I was working. And I'd never taught a yoga class, but I taught group training and fitness before. So I thought, what the heck, I'll try it. And I had like 30 people show up the first day. And, and it was exciting. And just, I don't know, I just fell in love with it, And so I was teaching all in all for maybe 2 or 3 years. Then I got into a teacher training program that was starting up in the town I was living in Brownsburg. And went through the teacher training. And it's just kind of been a big part of what I do ever since, whether that's actually teaching asana classes, or if that's using the tools and the techniques and the philosophy of yoga to work with people that I'm doing more one-on-one coaching with. Yeah.
Well, that's and I love the way you talk about asana as just a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just elaborate a little on how yoga can, weave its way into all areas of our life or different areas of our life beyond just what we think of when someone says yoga? You think of a yoga pose from maybe a magazine cover or something, or twisting the body in certain ways. But you alluded to there's so much more than that, and it can be such a great tool in other aspects of our life. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I think whenever I step back and kind of look at it from that perspective, one of the things I see that I find really interesting is yoga means so many different things to so many people. And it doesn't matter if they've been into yoga for a short period of time or decades. And I think as a result, it can be expressed and presented in a lot of different formats and packages. For some people, it's, the bhakti yoga. Some people, it's doing chanting and so forth. And for some of us, it's asana practice. And so I think it is one of those things that ultimately has the same goal in mind. But I think even then that can be interpreted in different ways, depending on what school you come from or how you interpret that. I guess what I mean by that, for me, the Yoga Sutras really had an impact. That was one of the earlier texts that I was studying. And, it says right out of the gates that yoga is about stilling the thought waves of the mind.
Right.
And I thought, wow, that's really powerful, because I think there was this perspective I had where it was all about enlightenment, where you would achieve samadhi and some of those more lofty spiritual things. Mm-hmm. And I should have asked if you can swear, because I almost did. So
yeah, you're okay.
But I was like, shit, that ain't gonna happen. I'm in the midst of raising kids. I now am helping between my wife and I. We have 6 kids that we're raising, right, and a couple of grandkids, and just with all that stuff and running a business and having bills and debt and a house, it's like, there's no way I'm going to be able to achieve that. And so like, well, then what's the point and so I kind of stepped back and I thought, maybe that's something that is obtainable. And I think in realizing, that's for those who they refer to in yoga as the renunciates, those that kind of forsake the trappings of life and they go off and really devote themselves to that path. And I thought, well, I'm a householder. That's how they refer to it in yoga. And so, here's a tool that I can really use in my life. And I guess it was coming back to that sutra of, yoga is the stilling of the thought waves of the mind. And when I look at it from that perspective, it's something I can practice on the mat. And what I mean in that respect is that the way I teach yoga, it's pretty physical, whether it's a hot class or vinyasa, something we might hold poses for a while, and it's physical. It's not a yin or gentle class. And so it presents an opportunity for us to examine, where's my mind? I ask that question in class a lot. Where's my mind? Where is my mind right now? I ask my students, where's your mind? Where are you thinking about? Are you present? Are you freaking out or whatever? And it's not to judge us, just to see where you are. And is that in alignment with where you want to be? Can you get to that place of calm and steady and that sense of stillness and ease in the middle of difficulty? So it's like this thing where I think we learn to be calm in the eye of the storm. Mm-hmm. And if I'm doing that in the yoga mat, that has a tremendous impact on my practice, that my heart rate is going to be lower. So like a physiological perspective, my heart rate's lower, my blood pressure is lower, I can hold poses longer, I'm not burning off as much glycogen. So if you want to look at it just from a physical perspective, there's a tremendous benefit in calming those thought waves of the mind and having some element of control over your mind and realizing that you do have that ability. And then from there, it's kind of like this realization for me that if I can do that on the yoga mat, how does that translate into my life? And so then it does, as you said, start to weave into other areas of your life. You realize that you're in traffic and you're getting really stressed out, and it's like, well, okay, this is just like in yoga when it's hot in here and I'm sweating, my legs are burning, and how much longer are you gonna hold this pose, dude? And so you're like, okay, well, I don't attach to that. I just observe that. And I don't have to be that. It's like I can feel these things, but I don't have to get all emotional and add drama to it.